You know, I gotta say, Paperboard Products Assembler, it's not exactly a job title that makes you think glamorous career.
Right.
But that's what makes this deep dive so interesting to me. We're really going deep on this one. We've got all this great material from RoleCatcher about this job. It doesn't exactly get a lot of buzz,
Yeah.
you know, but maybe, just maybe, it could be a hidden gem. For the right person, of course.
Okay.
And just look at all these products. I mean, yeah, you've got your cardboard boxes, sure. But then there's this whole other side of it. We're talking intricate designs,
Yeah.
like the packaging for high-end cosmetics.
Oh, absolutely.
Even those blister packs,
Yeah.
the ones that are like impossible to open.
Yeah.
I swear, we've all been there trying to wrestle those open.
Yeah, exactly.
And someone's got to put them together.
It's true. And honestly, people don't realize how much goes into designing those things. They have to be functional, but also, like you said, they have to look good on the shelf, especially for high-end products. It's a whole art form.
Right. And speaking of, that's something that I think gets overlooked in a job like this. I mean,
Yeah.
when you think assembly line, you don't exactly think creative expression, right?
Right.
But just from skimming these guides, I'm seeing this interesting blend of like handwork and technology.
Absolutely.
Like on one hand, you've got to be good with your hands, right? You're assembling things.
Yeah.
But then there's this whole other side where you're probably operating a machinery too, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious, how has that balance evolved over time?
Well, like a lot of industries, paperboard production has seen a huge increase in automation. But, and I think this is important, it hasn't completely replaced the need for skilled human workers.
Makes sense.
Machines are amazing at those repetitive tasks, churning out tons of product. But when it comes to that precision, that intricate assembly, when you really need an eye for detail,
Where?
or when it comes to quality control, especially for those complex designs, you still absolutely need a human being, a human eye, and a steady human hand.
It's like the old saying, it takes a human to make sure the robots are doing their job right.
Yes, you got it.
And I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because these RoleCatcher guides, they actually go into a lot of detail about the specific tasks involved. And it's more than just, folding boxes, which I'll be honest is kind of what I pictured when we first started talking about this.
It's way more involved. There's so much more to it. In fact, one of the things that really jumped out at me from the RoleCatcher materials was how crucial it is for these assemblers to follow the procedures, like down to the letter.
Yeah.
Every single time. Because consistency is key when you're talking about quality, right? And depending on what you're making and which company you're at, the assembly process could be totally manual, or it might involve some really sophisticated machinery. Things like die cutters or even printing presses.
Wow.
Some places are even using robotics now. It's pretty amazing how much technology is involved these days.
So it sounds like there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, right?
Yeah.
And, one thing that really caught my eye in these RoleCatcher materials is this whole section they have about career stages.
Yeah.
And it really lays out like a roadmap. Like you start here and you can actually move up. It's not just like a dead-end job.
Right. It's not just a job, it's a career path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of addresses that concern about the repetitive tasks, which, by the way, they do mention that as a potential downside.
Yeah, they do. And, to be fair, that can be a factor in this line of work for sure. But there's also a lot of opportunity to, specialize and move up the ranks. Like they even highlight a case study right there in the guide of someone who started out as an assembler, just like we're talking about, and they ended up becoming a production manager.
Wow.
So, imagine that. You start on the line and you work your way up. You're overseeing the whole operation. You're optimizing for efficiency, maybe even collaborating on the design of new products, all from, this starting point that people might not think much of.
That's pretty inspiring when you put it like that. And it makes you think about all the different skills you're developing along the way. I mean, problem solving, attention to detail, just understanding how the machinery works. I'm guessing those are valuable skills in just about any manufacturing setting, right?
Absolutely. And as you gain experience and you start to specialize, you become more and more valuable to an employer. And they actually talk about this in the guide, how those senior level assemblers, they might be leading teams, training the new hires, troubleshooting those really complex problems that come up. They might even work directly with the engineers who are designing the products and even the machines that make the products.
See, that's not something that would have occurred to me.
Right. It's not what you think of at first, but when you really break it down, it makes sense.
It really does. You're totally flipping the script on this whole dead-end job idea. But, we've got to talk about the elephant in the room here.
The salary.
Yeah. The guy does mention low wages, as a potential downside.
Yeah.
So is that just like a built-in thing with this field? Or are there ways to, break through that?
Well, it's like any job, right? The salary can vary a lot. It depends on where you are, what the company's like, how big they are. And then, of course, there's your own experience and how much you've
Right.
specialized. Like we were saying, you get really good at something specific. Maybe
Right.
you know how to operate a certain machine that nobody else does, or you've mastered some really intricate assembly technique. Those are the kinds of things that employers are willing to pay a premium for because they need you.
So it's about more than just like climbing the ladder. It's about going deep too, like
Yeah.
becoming an expert in something.
Exactly. You become the go-to person for a particular skill. And that's where those transferable skills we were talking about, they really come into play. Even if you decide, you know what, this whole paperboard thing isn't really for me, all those skills you picked up along the way, they could open doors for you in other parts of the manufacturing world.
I'm really glad you brought that up because it's a perfect transition to something else I wanted to dig into.
Yeah.
So far, we've been talking about the career itself,
Right.
but you actually gave us some really cool stuff from RoleCatcher about how they're using their platform to like shake things up, both for the people looking for jobs and the companies trying to hire them.
It's really interesting how they're approaching things. It's not just about throwing a job description up online and hoping for the best, you know?
Right.
They're using technology to actually match people with jobs they might be perfect for, but would never even think to apply for.
Yeah, and I was super interested by that whole thing with the AI resume analysis. Can you tell me more about how that works?
So how it works is you upload your resume, right,
Okay.
in their algorithms. They go to work, but they're not just looking for keywords like some systems do.
Right, right.
They're actually analyzing the skills and experience you've gained, like your whole career trajectory. So let's say, just as an example, you worked in retail for a while.
Yeah.
Fast-paced environment. You were stocking shelves, managing inventory, maybe even training new employees. Now, on the surface,
Yeah.
that might not scream manufacturing, right?
Right.
But RoleCatcher's AI, it can see those connections. It can tell that you've got attention to detail, you're a problem solver, you work well on a team. And those are all things that would make you successful as an assembler.
So even if your resume doesn't look exactly how, like, a hiring manager might expect,
Exactly.
this tool can still help you,
Yeah.
highlight the stuff that actually matters.
It connects the dots for you, the ones you might not even see yourself. And on top of all that, they've got this massive database of interview questions.
No way.
Oh, yeah. And they're
Wow.
specific to different jobs and industries, so you can really tailor your prep. Not only can you tweak your resume to really make those skills shine through, but you can also walk into an interview feeling super confident.
It's like having a cheat sheet.
Right. You know what to expect.
That is such a valuable resource,
Yeah.
especially like if this is a totally new field for you, or even if you just like haven't had to interview in ages.
Tell me about it. Interviewing is a skill in itself.
Totally.
But I think this all speaks to something much bigger that's happening in the job market right now. It's not so much about checking off boxes anymore, you know? It's more about those unique skills and experience you bring to the table. And that's where a platform like RoleCatcher can really shine. They get that.
It's like they're saying, forget what you thought you knew about this whole job thing.
Right.
Let's dig a little deeper and see what you're really capable of. And that, I think, brings us right back to where we started today, with this job title, Paperboard Products Assembler. It doesn't exactly sound like revolutionary.
Right.
But we've uncovered this whole other layer, all this complexity, high-tech stuff, real career potential, things most people probably don't even realize.
It's true. It's like you said, more than meets the eye with the job and with the people who do it.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about, because this has really been on my mind throughout this whole conversation. We're living in a world where automation is getting more and more sophisticated every single day, right? So what does it mean when you have a job that still requires that human touch, that precision, that attention to detail? Is it a weakness? Or could it actually be a really unique advantage, something to ponder, right, as you're out there navigating your own career journey? And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of paperboard and beyond.